Greetings, this is Jack Moelmann once again, and this is part of our series of featuring noted theater organists that have been doing this for a long time, and even some that we're going to have on the program here that have done it for a very short time. This is coming to you tonight on March 27th, 2011 in Belleville, Illinois, which is near St. Louis. And it's during a mini convention, if you will, put on by the St. Louis Theater Organ Society, which is a chapter of the American Theater Organ Society. And with us is probably one of the greats of many, many years in the theater organ world. His name is Kay McAbee, currently a resident of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And glad to have you, Kay.
Well, thank you, Jack.
How did you ever get started in the music business?
Well, of course, the usual. My mother wanted to give me piano lessons back when, and because I kept banging around on the piano, and of course, you know how it is. Once they gave me the lessons, I didn't want to practice. See, so, but I stayed with it, and I kept at it. In our church, we had a small pipe organ, and that kind of fascinated me a little bit, but not enough to really get into it. And I had never heard of a theater pipe organ, although a few miles away was the Rialto in Joliet, but I never heard them when they used it, which was very limited during the 30s.
That's Joliet, Illinois, right?
Right, Joliet, Illinois. So I went to, I know it sounds goofy, but I went to a one-room school, and the teacher, as a result of something in 8th grade, which there were 7 of us, took us to a roller rink in Joliet, Illinois, and they had a Hammond organ in there, which the guy was playing, and that's, I don't remember much about it, but she made a big deal out of telling the class that this organ hasn't got any pipes. So I thought, well, all right, fine, but we wanted to get skating. So this went on, and over the months, I'd say once in a while I hear somebody talk about hearing the organ at the Rialto, of which I thought, well, of course, was a Hammond. So in 1948, they were celebrating their anniversary week in May, and several of us managed to skip school to go because they were having a first-run movie of State of the Union with Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy, and it wasn't even playing in Chicago. Joliet had the dibs on it, with a stage show. And, well, I'd never seen a stage show like that, so we all went, but hanging from the marquee was a little cardboard sign or something, and it said, "Extra added attraction, Joe Lyons at the organ." And I just assumed it was a Hammond. Well, after they got through the movie, and after we got through the orchestra part, the band and all that stuff, stage show, we were right in the best part, front row balcony in the middle. Out of the pit came this organ, the console. And I can't remember, it wasn't Saber Dance, but it was something like that. And well, I was just welded to the seat. I never heard anything like that. And the sound systems were not that good in that day. This thing, boy, you could feel that diaphone on your chest. I didn't know what the stops were. And even the kids I were with said, wow, look at that. Then I remember he turned around and everybody bowed. And then he turned around again, and I know now what it was, but he's had 16 and 4-foot tibias in each chamber, and he was going da, 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 and it just swirled, and I thought, good grief, that is fantastic. And he went into a popular hit of the day called Again from Roadhouse. And, well, I swore, I thought, my God, and this was just the most fantastic thing I had ever heard. So much so, everybody else took off, but I sat through the whole thing again just so I could get down by the orchestra pit and watch. Well, I got home that night, and of course I was telling all about this. Oh, well, yeah, we remember hearing Leo Terry, who was the organist back in the 20s, you know. And I said, well, I didn't know that. And my dad said, well, he said, you bet. I said, this is what I want to do. He said, where? He said, you better hitch your wagon to a star someplace else. He said, only roller rinks and churches have organs. I said, not like this. So, make a long story short, this was what I was going to do. And so I really began to settle down and study serious organ, which I was taking at the time. But nobody seemed to know what the registrations were, what this was, how you could do it. So I went to the record store and they had a Jesse Crawford organ plays at twilight, some Don Baker, which really I thought was fantastic at the time, and well, still is actually. And I just wore those out. So when I went into college, I managed to get a job with the Kimball Company in Chicago. And I found out that they built organs at one time, pipe organs, theater organs as well. And the Barton in the Rialto, it wasn't a Wurlitzer, I couldn't understand that, but then I found out that the Barton was an organ in the stadium, was a Barton, so it couldn't be that bad of a company if it was in the stadium. But a lot of the old timers at that time, which were still rather young, were, well, yeah, it died, you know, getting something else or play nightclub or something, but I stuck to it. And I got some friends and managed to get in, learn about the Aurora Paramount Wurlitzer, which was put in 1930, it was 31, it was a brand new organ. They only used it for about 2 weeks and that was about it. In fact, the great pistons on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were like this. You press 1, all the great stops came on. You press 2, they all went off. It was still like that from the factory to be checked out. And whoever, I never could find out who played it on opening night, but just the first 4 or 5 pistons were set on it. This organ was just like brand new. And a huge theater. So I managed to get on that and began to learn a lot about how registrations, and then of course, the great Reginald Fort got a job with the Moelmann Company and came over from England. He was right across the street from Kimball. So I got a lot of ideas from him. Mildred Fitzpatrick used to play that big Wurlitzer up in the Chicago Arena for ice skating and stuff like that up on Wabash Avenue, North Wabash Avenue, and I learned a lot from her too. Little by little it kept on, and I managed to get into the Rialto and started practicing on that. And one thing led to another. I got to meet other organists and interested people from around the country. Everybody knew where everything was, and I got invited to play theater concerts as well. And of course, you had to go in late at night because the shows were still going, you know, and it became quite interesting.
Well, that's very interesting. It's quite a life you started out for, and you've been doing it ever since.
That's right, ever since.
And you play classical, you play
I do.
Piano. You started with the piano, obviously.
Obviously. And I kept that up during high school as long as, with the same teacher who taught organ, and his name was Mr. Converse, and he was very good, see.
Would your advice be for somebody that's just starting out in this to start with the piano before they even attempt an organ?
Well, yeah, that's right. I remember I learned Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It just came out when I was 4 years old. And well, it was simply played, but I could do stuff like that. And I remember at the church I was supposed to play, I think it came upon the Midnight Clear, during the Sunday school program. Instead, I substituted Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and they thought, oh, I almost got, no matinee for a couple of weeks on that, In those days, we didn't have TV, and if you goofed up, the parents, the only thing you had was the matinee on Saturday of all kinds of westerns and things like that, and all the kids went to them, and if you were a bad boy or girl, they'd hold you back, so I apologized so I could go to the matinee,
But anybody starting out, not having to play anything at all, you would highly recommend that they start with the piano before
Well,
they
they
go to
should
the
have
organ.
some, as you well know, Jack, it helps build your technique, you know, and read well, you know. But of course, it's a different touch though, because on the organ you have to hold the notes down for as long as they're supposed to be, otherwise they'll disappear. And the piano has a sustain pedal, which is not good, it's overused, so that's and then you have to learn the second touch and all that other stuff and how to use that, and it's a different ball game, but the technique and the reading ability helps a lot if you have piano at first.
Have you ever guessed at the number of programs, concerts that you've given in your lifetime?
Oh, Lord. Well, lots of them. When I worked for Kimball, as a start out, they were the con representatives. And they were trying to outdo Hammond. Everybody had Hammonds in those days. But when they'd sell one to a school or something like that, they send me out to play the demonstrations and things like that. And there were programs, then you were here and there. Oh yeah, I had a lot of stuff going on at one time, you know.
What do you think is the best program, the most exciting program you ever did in terms of both performance and the instrument on which you played?
Oh, well, there were several, like Rochester, New York, that was an exciting instrument, Wurlitzer, big Wurlitzer there, and of course the Rialto, but one of the best, where was that? Anyway, well, Chicago, at the Craftsman's Masonic Lodge, they had a good-sized molar on North Avenue. And it's not there anymore, but it was theatrical enough. And I was asked to come and give a concert, and I was only about 22, and I really thought this was big stuff. Well, it was. I mean, it was still well going. And I was presented in this, and everything worked. I wasn't feeling that good. I had a soft tire in the car coming up there, but everything came together, and I just, no matter, you know, Jack, it was just, no matter what you tried, it just came out good, you know, and stuff like that. But it's an interesting thing. After I was through, they had a North Side newspaper, and they were talking about, they have things in there in the music section, and so played a violin someplace, and she went on with this, the critic, you know, about how, oh, every note was just something else, you know, and then this guy sang. And then it says, Kay McAbee gave a concert at Craftsman's Masonic Temple on a Moeller pipe organ, and it was well attended. ... Well, there you have it. There's nothing more to say, you know. But it came off. They wanted me to play more encores, and I did the best I could. I didn't know all that stuff at that time, have a repertoire like I did, but they just thought I was something else. And it did come off good. Then, at the Rialto one time, I don't know, it was just something that kept going wrong. The stagehand goofed up on this lift, and I'm down here and having to play here. That was being broadcast, and the janitors can clean out the pit. You had all these popcorn boxes down there, and no matter what I tried, it was coming off bad. And well, you know, they had this one woman come in there to sing Mac the Knife, and she was mad because we didn't get a chance to rehearse, and she gives me this manuscript that's stretched out all over the rack, and the arc light going through it, you know, and she's up there, oh, the shark light. And I thought, oh, it was horrible. You know, nothing worked, and I thought, I've got to get, but you know what? More people came up and said, oh, it was just fantastic. You know how that is, you know. Usually that's the way it works. You play a good program and, hey, okay, it was pretty good, but then you played enough where there was enough noticeable mistakes or a bad mistake or something like that, and they'll come up and say, well, that was pretty good playing today like that. You know, you play something like Stardust and they're da-da-da-da, clunk, you hit a wrong note there, which anybody could know that, oh, what happened? You get compliments, and then you go like, I'm sure you're aware, you work and get it all up good and so on like that, and then the applause is like that, and after it's over with, it's gone. But it's great. I love it, and I'm here in St. Louis and Belleville, and heard Donna Parker and Jonas Nordwell on the organ over here in the Lincoln Theater. Boy, I'll say that's been improved. That is such a wonderful sounding organ. We're going to go to the Fox tomorrow, and I might be asked to do a cameo tonight. I'm not sure. So.
You know, if you ever hit a bad note, well, I always call it it's an arrangement.
That's yeah.
Where in the world or the United States is an instrument and a venue that you haven't played that you would really want to do if you ever had the chance? I mean, you know, what's something that you haven't done that you really want to do?
Well, I know there are several of them. The Fox Atlanta, the big molar, I would always thought that would be a very thrilling instrument to play. I never did. And of course, where you were, Radio City Music Hall, that's an outstanding instrument itself, but I understand there's so many ins and outs there with union and everything like that. So, and then let me see. Oh, come on, Kay. I don't know, Jack, I'd have to think about that. There are some around that I would really like to play, and my mind's a blank right now.
Well, having been around as much as you have, and not knowing who all would be looking at this particular recording, to the young people, to the middle-aged, to anybody, what would be your advice as to how to attack this instrument from a listening standpoint of playing? What would be your message to the world concerning this type of entertainment?
If they want to get into that, and really would like to, and they happen to be lucky enough to be in a city or a town that are nearby where there is a theater pipe organ, regardless if it's only 2 manual 8 ranks or 4 manual 19 ranks, to find out who the organist is. Well, first of all, I would suggest getting an organ for the home, you know, used one or something, and start taking lessons, and then be able to use your own ability, and then, you know, look where you could go and stuff like that. And there are places around, and now the ATOS have these summer camps going now for young people, and that's a good thing. See, you get to hear outstanding performers teach it, and then you get some ideas, and then go home and start working with it, and little by little, you know. So it doesn't make any difference, and I found over the years that it's not how many degrees you got, but who can play, because it seems like if they got PhDs or something, they're technically good, but they don't have the flourish that some other people would have, like Donna Parker or something. Well, I know she might have a PhD who has a flourish to it, or George Wright, which certainly has never been topped, you know, so that's what I would suggest, you know.
Who's the #1 organist that you admire more than anybody else?
Right now?
Right now, or who has ever
been? Whoever. Well, of course I admired Stan Can, who unfortunately just passed away a couple years ago. George Wright, of course, I admired, and Ashley Miller, and Virgil Fox, naturally. So, yeah, those whenever I could, I'd hear them if they were coming through, you know.
Well, I think we're going to probably bring this to a close. Really appreciate you being here, Kay.
I appreciate it. Believe me, it's St. Louis was very good to me. This was really, they've had me for 6 concerts here, and I was thrilled to death, and the people are so wonderful here, as you well know. And
I live here, I know.
Well, that's right. No, but they are, and I've been to other places where they like you, but it's kind of standoffish. But here, you feel like you've known them for a long time. So I'm so glad to be here. Believe me.
Well, we wish you well, and we thank you for being here. We're in a it's called the Bell Court. It's a nice facility here.
That's right.
And the music that you might be hearing in the background is part of this banquet we're having tonight. So if you hear some piano music, they haven't cranked up the organ yet. That's what's going on there. So thank you very much, Kay. Today,
Well, thank you, Jack.
reminder is the 27th of March, 2011. And Jack Moelmann and Kay McAbee, we thank you very much, and everyone have a good evening.
Well, thank you. Okay.